This is the Digital Marketing Experts Podcast episode. No, why am I trying to sound like a radio announcer? Hey everyone, welcome to episode 129 of Experts in the Wire. I'm very excited to have my guest today, Kristine Schachinger, on this episode. Kristine, you've been an SEO consultant, I believe, for over 15 years, definitely longer than I've been doing SEO consulting. You just listed the other day some of your sites you've worked with were Vice, Instacart, Zappos, USA.gov. It's a really impressive list. And I've also really been enjoying your posts on LinkedIn quite a lot. They often go against what a lot of, like, I'll say, quote unquote, mainstream SEO talks about. So that, and I align with you on many things. So I want to hear your thoughts on some of these sort of Google and SEO issues. But let's start with AI and SEO. You had a recent LinkedIn post where you shared an article saying that AI content was outperforming human content. And you said those comparisons were silly. And I'm very curious if you can talk a little bit about why you see those comparisons being silly and sort of what that report was all about.
Sure. It's common when they do AI testing, generative systems, so really machine learning, but we all say AI now. That they do things like, oh, it took the bar exam and it did so well. And it's like, well, yeah, because it got to train on all the questions and answers of the bar exam. So of course it did well.
Yeah.
So when they say, oh, they prefer AI content over human content, we're taking average human content, which may have some good and some bad. And then you're taking AI content, which is human content, because they've trained on all the human writings that they can possibly ingest. And then they edit those, and then they have real humans go through those. For OpenAI, was people in Kenya getting paid $2 a day. It was actually pretty bad because they had to go through all the worst things that exist online and remove those from the copy. Yeah, that's why OpenAI solved something called the Nazi problem, which is a legitimate name for it. I'm not using the word to use the word. But what it was like, you remember the Microsoft chatbot that went out into the wild, and like after 2 days they had to pull it back because it was racist and anti-Semitic and hateful and all that because it learned on humans. So what they did with this is they had people in Kenya go through all the training information and then things that were being outputted, and then they helped remove all that from the learning so that they wouldn't repeat those things. And then they were taught by humans to sound conversational and confident. So like the drunk guy at the bar, is like, has a couple beers in him and he's like, I know everything and I'm going to say it just right. So they trained on some of the best writings in the world, and then they edited that, and then they had humans go through and take out all the worst things. And then they had, then they had it with humans going back and forth on conversations to train it to sound human and conversational. So of course, when you put that up against regular human writing, like you're going to get AI is better, right? But if I got like, let's say Walt Whitman to write something, and then, or, one of the best writers from the New York Times, who's also got a great editor, I'm pretty sure if we took all that writing and put it against the AI, it might come out about equal or, but you're not going to say AI is preferable because AI is just this one style of writing and this one level of writing, and humans write at all levels and all styles. So.
And when they're saying it outperformed human comment, did they mean in rankings in SEO? Where were they judging that performance?
No, this was just research on LinkedIn. I follow a lot of the researchers, academics, and heads of companies like Hugging Face and OpenAI because they're still early in their industry. So unlike now, Microsoft or Google filters everything through PR and comms. They don't. They just talk. So you learn a lot from them. So this is one of the studies that they produced showing like, hey, this outperformed humans. And I'm like, well, of course it did, because it's the best human writing that's available, heavily edited and heavily trained to sound amazing. So
yeah, that makes sense. So in terms of AI in the SEO world, I've described the onset of AI as the fastest, most slowest moving thing to happen to SEO. It just feels like I'm watching a slow sort of car wreck, train wreck, something like, it's big, but here we are a year later after ChatGPT 3.5, and it still feels a little like we're not quite where I thought we'd be a year later. How do you think AI is impacting the SEO world in general in terms of any aspect of AI?
I think there are people that are doing good uses and people that are not. I think it's more common for people to think it's an easy way out of having to write content and using it for that. Where I do know some SEOs who have developed like their own GPTs from ChatGPT and are using it to help with ideation, help them with developing ideas, helping them. Some SEOs also code, so it's helping them with code. One caveat: if you don't know how to code, do not go and have it create code for you and then give it to people to put
Yeah.
on their phones and things, because you could code in security risks that you have no idea because you don't know code
Yeah.
into the system. So you never want to do that because then you're liable legally for that, right? But so I see both sides of the spectrum. Unfortunately, I usually see too much of the side that I don't consider a positive. So if you want to use it for like emails, link outreach, newsletters, ideation, concepts, basic content generalizations, that's amazing. Go do that. But I see people doing it for one, things like writing content for Google and Bing, which is facing Google and Bing facing, which I don't, in my opinion, is not a positive. Google never said they were just fine with AI content. They said they're fine with AI content with a lot of caveats. And most of the SEOs have never looked at the caveats.
Yeah.
So
What are
then
those caveats?
caveats like it has to have depth and breadth. It has to have originality. It has like they want it to be unique, right? Well, that large language models can't do that. They
Yeah.
can't go outside their trainings. So the HCU, I believe, definitely has items in it where it targets AI content. Now, it's not saying this is AI content. I'm targeting you. It is saying we require this from content. And I'm talking with my hands, by the way. People can see it. I was like this big content, and no one
I
can
can
see
see
that.
it and it's helpful.
So the content, so the AI content for Google, why do they want it? People, why would they want it? They already have a trillion documents that they are dealing with, right? So we are going to double that probably in the next year with AI content. Why would they want to just keep regurgitating what already exists in Google? They don't need it, right? So the HCU definitely has things in it that target concepts that AI can't meet. Other
And
content can't
that's
meet it
the
either.
helpful content update,
Sorry,
the
yes,
HCU.
yeah.
Yeah.
Helpful content update. And that one is a pretty severe evaluation because it holds you in a sandbox for a few months. So during that time, you can't recover it all. And then what are you going to have to do if that's why they evaluate your site with your AI content? You're going to have to rewrite it all, right? So that's an expensive proposition. So
Right.
I'm telling my clients any important content on the site or for most site content to make sure that you hire a good writer that knows how to do research and knows how to add unique perspective to the concept. And John Mueller, I think about a month or 2 months ago, said online that they didn't want regurgitated content, that put using AI content was a anchor against your website. And if
Yeah.
you're starting behind this, you're behind the starting line and you're not going to do well with it, which tells me that they are targeting it. Also, in 2022, they had an algorithm that detected AI
Yeah.
and it would detect basically spinner content done with AI from other people's websites. But that's too expensive a proposition to do to every piece of content they have. So I believe the HCU was like the compromise for that.
So
Um, yeah, go
are
ahead. Sorry.
they, is that currently how you believe they're detecting AI content? They're running some sort of AI detection
No,
algorithm on a sample, or how are they detecting it now?
I don't think they're detecting it straight out, except for that one algorithm they did in 2022 before ChatGPT came
Okay.
out,
So are they looking
because it's too expensive.
for like low quality content or like content that's too similar to other content or
Too similar. Like they know from they have topical in the knowledge graph and the vector database that they use. They have the ability to put a topical mesh over there, so they know like this is all medical content, and this medical content uses the um, same basic all the same entities that this other piece of content did. So how well does that document score is probably be the one that wins, and the other might not even get indexed.
are
So
there any AI detection tools that you use or you have your clients use to like check? Because sometimes a client will hire a freelance writer and then unknown to them, that freelance writer uses ChatGPT to write the post and gives that to them. And, or like I'll have clients run a plagiarism checker, for example. So are there any AI detection tools that you like?
none that I know that have any accuracy to them. So I don't tell clients to use them because they could
Okay.
make a mistake and someone could lose their job. Or I also oversee for a university their content, and they were like, "How can we detect it?" I'm like, "Well, you really can't. So you're going to have to find other ways." Now, There are ways, I'm sure you know, because you've probably read a whole bunch of it. After you've
Hmm.
read it for a while, you can almost instantly tell this is written by AI. And
Yeah.
that's the same thing I think Google's doing, because in the HCU, it's like it has to have originality, your content. Well, it can't
Right.
have originality. It literally can't have originality.
Yeah.
It has to have depth and breadth. Well, AI content almost never has depth and breadth, right?
Hmm.
It writes generally and it doesn't write deeply, right? It's surface level mostly. You could probably ask it to do more, but by the time you get it to do all that stuff, you might as well just hire a writer to do that
Right.
content.
Yeah.
You can do it for like titles and descriptions though. Like Yoast tool now has a title and description writer with AI. I have a site I'm looking at right now that has 50,000 pages without a meta description. I'm certainly not going to tell them to go hire a writer to write 50,000 meta descriptions. That's such a small amount of content. There's no way for anybody to really pick up on whether it was written human or AI. And Google says they don't care about
I
titles and
see.
descriptions. Yeah.
So, because I had read about on the New York Times last year, they had a great article about the watermarking technology in
Mhm.
detecting AI. And it sounded, in my mind, I was like, oh, it sounds like Google's going to be incorporating or leveraging this or something. And it also talked about how they, in theory, would be able to detect AI content that had been edited. And I'm like, okay, this technology sounds incredible. I wonder if Google's using something like that. Maybe they will in the future. I don't know. But it sounds like, in your opinion, they're not currently using that sort of detection.
No, I don't think so. I was excited too when I heard about that. OpenAI never really followed through with it on text.
Oh,
They
okay.
have though, and in a second I'll get to it about images though.
Yeah.
But with the idea of detecting AI on trillions of documents, on billions of queries a day, it's just too much. It's too much resource. It
Right.
costs too much. I mean, I don't know if you know, but last year, OpenAI and Microsoft almost ran out of processing power. They
Oh my
literally
goodness.
didn't have any more chips in the world that they could use,
Oh wow.
and
Like
so
physical chips.
physical chips. So
Oh my
NVIDIA
goodness.
came in and they created a special chip. And that's why
Oh,
their stock price went through the roof last year, because they were the only ones who could provide the amount of chips necessary for I mean, not just chat GPT, but everything OpenAI is doing with that. And
yeah.
then and Microsoft Bing, and I guess they call it Copilot now.
Oh
But
wow.
yeah. So
And so you hinted on one of the big problems this may be causing for Google and SEO, which is indexing, right? Because now there's so much more content out there that Google has to crawl, consider if they want to index or not. So
yeah,
are
right.
you seeing issues with that? And then how can maybe site owners be more prepared to deal with indexing problems?
Well, I think that I think the first place we can always look for the effects are the affiliate space, right?
Oh, interesting. Yep.
Because a lot of the affiliates, all they do is turn and burn sites all day long, right?
Mm-hmm.
I used to know an affiliate, he could spin up in a day, he could spin up 20 sites using a spinner and some script he wrote to set up the WordPress site and had stock images ready to go. Boom, boom, boom,
Oh my
boom. They
goodness.
just create them, right? Because they know they're going to get them burned. So during the HCU last year, a lot of affiliate sites got burned. A lot of them went down. Now
Yeah.
it's a constant people understand the helpful content update runs all the time, but it also has updates, and we've never had that before. It's also using machine learning as in a ranking signal, which has never been done before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also going to hit good sites too, right? Until
Okay.
it
Yeah.
learns what a good site is versus a not good site. So so when it comes to that's how I think Google's handling it. I think Google's just using algorithms to try to determine this means any kind of content can get hit. Content can't get a hit. So if your content's just not that great, even if you hand wrote it and it seems like it's similar to all the issues that the helpful content update looks for, then you're still going to get hit too. But I think the affiliate space is the space to watch to
Yeah.
see how Google is handling it. Also, and let me know if I'm rambling too much, but I think right now, like we notice there's a lot of spam in Google, right?
Yes.
And
Tons.
I have a theory about that, just a theory.
Mm-hmm.
But Google has an algorithm called neural matching. It's called an ad hoc algorithm. And what they do is BERT gathers all the documents that it thinks are going to be relevant for the query space. And then they score the documents with the traditional core ranking signals. And then they can add rank brain and neural matching. Well, those were added very low, at like 20 to 30% of every website of all the websites might have had that used. And all of a sudden now we're seeing that it looks like the query text is way more important than it used to be. And who optimizes for query text more than anybody? But spammers, right?
Yeah.
So if they amped up the neural matching algorithm, which is basically just taking the query text and
Mm-hmm.
looking at the documents and finding the most relevant match, which it can also include like synonyms, antonyms, things like that. And they were to amp that up and reduce the core ranking signals, you would get the mess that we have now. So it's just a theory,
Oh,
but
interesting.
I do think that's possibly why we're seeing that as a problem, because spammers optimize every single page for keywords. And the only thing that neural matching does, it doesn't use any ranking signals. It only takes the post-scored documents and re-ranks them for the
Right.
final sort order. So if that was only used minimally, you probably would notice, and it would be more relevant. But in their research paper about this algorithm, they said it's better than the ranking signals. They said it was
Oh,
a
wow.
better type of, yeah, it was a better type of information retrieval, which in research probably was. But when you put spammers against it, probably not so much. We'll see. I don't, like I said, that's my theory, because it also makes sense that why a lot of technical SEOs, we've noticed that the things that used to get us hockey stick improvements. And if you don't know what a hockey stick is, if you're listening, it means you're looking at a site and it's got its traffic, and all of a sudden that traffic spikes through the roof, and we call it a hockey stick because it looks like a hockey stick. And
Yeah.
SEOs live for a hockey stick, right? Yeah, yeah. Like
Absolutely.
that just makes your day. You wake up, you see a hockey stick, you're like, yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So we've all noticed that, and I've talked to a bunch of SEOs, technical SEOs at different conferences from across the world, and all of us have seen the same thing. Technical has not been having the effect it used to have.
Yeah.
So if that would also fit with the neural matching being amped up, because then it's not the only thing they're using, but if they made it much more important, the query text to the document text, then technical wouldn't make as big of a difference.
So to dig into the helpful content update a little bit more, one thing is I see some people, Glenn Gabe, for example, he's amazing. He'll talk about things like UX issues contributing to helpful content update. I want to get your take on that. And I also want to go back and clarify, were you saying that if Google detects what they're calling AI content, or that sort of low quality content that has a similar topical vector map to other content, if they detect that on some parts of the site, will that sort of like affect the entire site, or is this a page by page algorithm? So first, the UX stuff. Second, is it page by page?
So the UX stuff, yes. So Google said in the helpful content update that page experience matters. So page experience, like you used to see in a Google Search Console, where it talks about page speed and the different things in the core web vitals, and then is it working in mobile? I also know that Google is not a fan of sites that like above the fold will be, and you have to look where Google's determining the size of the window because it changes. But above the fold is like your hero image, or just some lead form, or no real text. Well, now that is a detriment. So there are UX issues, but that's always been kind of a thing.
I agree.
They tacked on page experience to HCU, but that wasn't new. It's just I think they added it. So
okay.
And I think maybe also as a safety measure. So if you have a cookie cutter WordPress template that 1,000 other affiliates have used because they know you have affiliate links, I saw right before we knew about the HCU, 4 sites get hit, and all of them had the exact same template.
Oh,
all
wow.
of them used AI content and fake AI people, and none of them recovered. So a year later, none of them had recovered. They all started new sites.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I don't know. I mean, that's just a anecdotal finding, but the fact that it was the same template, same design, the same everything, and all 4 got hit by the same update, which at the time we didn't know what the update was called until later.
Yeah.
So yes, so they're not detecting AI content specifically.
Right. Yeah, we covered that. I'm just using that as like a shorthand. Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm really clear about that, because I don't want people thinking I'm saying they got an AI detector. They do have that one algorithm that does it for spun content, but that's different.
Right. Yeah.
So this is just more, I give you metrics you can't meet. I'm 5'4", and if you tell me to jump an 8-foot fence, probably not gonna be able to jump it, right?
Yeah.
But if you're like 7 foot tall, probably not that hard for you. So there are parameters in the helpful content update that match things that AI can't do. Just literally can't do.
Right.
It's not capable. So, but yes, the helpful content update will demote your entire site.
Okay.
And I have a theory, I haven't had a chance to check it out yet, that it'll demote the pages it found unhelpful the most. So, yeah. So if somebody knows, reach out to me if you know if that's true or not, because I'm got a site I'm going to look at. But it would probably demote those the most, and then the others, like the core updates, is applied at the keyword level. So if you go and look at the root keywords that drop the most, the pages associated with them, you can almost find out why they demoted your site.
Right.
So I'm hoping the HCU is similar. So
yeah, it's very interesting. So to chat about a couple other AI things. So images. I know Sora came out. I'm fairly aligned with you, I think, on an opinion you talked about on LinkedIn. So what are your thoughts on Sora? I guess that's video, not image, but it's visual. And then AI image in general, images in general. Any thoughts on that?
sure. I use Midjourney, but I don't use it for anything important. Google and OpenAI and Microsoft and a couple of the other AI firms have gotten together and developed a standard for identifying AI imagery. It'll go in something called the picked file that goes out with every image that you can't see. You have to have a special tool to see it, and that will indicate to whoever is picking it up that this is an AI generated image. Adobe was the first one to do it right. In fact, Adobe has this in all the images that are adjusted with AI or made with AI, but they also train on photos that they paid for. So my big problem with AI is it's theft, and people argue with you that have never done art. It's not theft. If you're an artist, you see all these things and you just recreate them, and it's like, no. I went to art school, right? I was a designer for years. You may be influenced in your head by like a type of stroke or a type of art. Like maybe I want to try Impressionism, or I want to do high Renaissance style art, but it's still your creation. It's still the process of you taking what you believe you want to get onto that canvas or in that image in a shot, and it's you creating that final piece. And AI went out there and they took everybody's stuff and they don't regenerate it. So I think a lot of people think it's regenerated. Well, it depends on who's doing it, but the main one uses a diffusion process. So a flower has a template as a flower, and then they renders pixels backwards out of it to create the images.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, based on what they trained on. So if anyone wants to learn a lot about this, go to the AI Village at DEF CON this year. I'll be there. Let me know.
The AI Village?
Yeah, we had two of their people on our podcast come speak about these different things.
And where is that going to be?
DEF CON in Las Vegas in August.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah, but if you come, let me know. I'll also give you the rundown on how not to get hacked. It's a hackers conference.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So the images. So Adobe started right now. Other people are starting to go that way too. So OpenAI supposedly has developed an image watermark, like you were talking before, a front watermark on the image, and then in the picked file that will be very difficult to tamper with, even if you screenshot it or something like that. Now we'll see. And then Google's already said they're going to label AI images as AI images and video in Google. So I think the good thing about that, people are like, well, bad people will still do bad things, and they will. This election, we're going to see so much fakery going on to try to swing votes. But if you start to, like you and I both know, we see so much of it. Our brains are built on pattern recognition. That's what humans do. And so after a while, your brain will go, oh, that looks weird. That looks a little off. I don't know that could be, that's really good. And so I see it on Facebook, some of these groups that post AI images all the time of nature. The groups started originally going, oh, that's so cool. And now you'll see all the comments like, oh, that's AI, blah, blah, blah. I researched it. I checked it out. And I think it will trigger people when they start seeing it labeled all the time. Yep. They start to understand what it looks like. Like in a human version of AI, it's the skin is always a little bit of plastic. Or if you have a vein or a tendon sticking out, it's always a little bit sharp. Yep. There's things like that hopefully people will notice over time. But to me, it is theft. And we'll find out there's going to be a lot of laws tested soon. And Getty's the most litigious company on earth. If you've ever worked in our field, you know that, you can't go more than two people away to find someone who didn't get a Getty, notice about violating copyright.
Right.
But when they trained on it, they got the Getty copyright, the Getty logo in the training. So that's going to be a lot easier to prove than the text training. Yeah. Because the logos are literally there for the stock photo sites.
Yeah. And one last question on AI, and we'll move to some other stuff. But what are your thoughts on the search generative experience, right? I mean, this thing launched, Google responded to ChatGPT. They launched this thing. It sort of was like a little, I'll use the word impressive, not maybe, it was like, felt very revolutionary to see it if you got into the beta and see it working, because the Google's way of designing it to look like it's generating an answer and it's like this color box up at the top, like it felt like a leap forward in terms of Google search engine. But here we are again a year later and it's not launched and we don't know of any launch coming. What are your thoughts, opinions on Google's SGE? Will it launch? Should SEOs and site owners still be trying to prepare for, right? I've seen people building these like spreadsheets to determine like what's the likelihood you're going to see an AI answer at the top of any given search query. So where do you sit with that in terms of how aware and how much attention we should be giving to SGE?
I would say not a whole lot right now. like see how it works, but it's still testing, right? So I still get some days where I get just a one line little box, then I get two. Then yesterday I got 1,000 pixels that showed up in the middle of the search results, which I instantly put a negative and like, oh my gosh, no, like no, I hate it. First of all, I don't like it. Large language models are often wrong. And I do know the threat to the sites underneath, and that is they won't get traffic, right?
Right.
So I use it very, very rarely. I find that the featured snippet is so much better for me than the SGE. And I personally, and I know I have an unpopular opinion here, but I don't believe it belongs in search. I think that they reacted to ChatGPT coming out and then Bing and Microsoft getting ChatGPT. But Bing has gotten not even 1% increased market share.
Yeah.
Yeah. But 14% increased usage and costs. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Not a good move by Bing, probably, in hindsight.
No. So I think that originally Google's plan was to make it ubiquitous in products. So you'd open up your sheets and it would have it there, or you'd open up your version of Docs, Word, the Docs, and it would be there.
Right.
ChatGPT needed funding, is my guess. And so they threw it out in the world and they're like, here you go. And everyone thought, oh, that's so cool. Now I can be creative, even though I'm not creative. And everyone used it. But I find that SGE, I think, is a mistake. I think they should have created a separate tab that said like create, put SGE in there, put their image generator in there, put ads in there. And people would sit and search function involved with that. And people would sit there all day and do stuff, right?
Go back and forth, yeah.
Go back and forth. But I think in actual search, I don't like it. I don't find it very useful, and I find it obnoxious. And I can't collapse it. So if I even open it up to see it, now I got to keep scrolling past 1,000 or 1,500 pixels of information, which I don't want to see anyway.
Yeah.
But people who say they can optimize it for and all that, how would you optimize for something we don't even know how it's going to roll out, if it's going to roll out, and it doesn't have anything to do with search? I would beg anybody listening to this, if you're in our industry, there's the lead of IBM's AI on LinkedIn, and you can find him. And he offers periodically a free 15-day course on how this stuff works, and go take it. Because, right? So many SEOs think like you can analyze stuff with LLMs. You can't. You can do keyword research with large language models. You can't. It's not analyzing. All it's doing is producing the next most likely word in a semantic context. There are other tools that can help you do that, and then it can help you with the output from those tools, but directly itself, it can't. That's, I think, the thing that the SEO industry misses the most, and what this stuff can't do.
Yeah.
And
So let's chat about another recent thing Google said, which stumped a lot of people. They came out and said, well, now Core Web Vitals is not a ranking factor. And all along, like whenever they said it was a ranking factor, I was definitely in the camp of like very minimal. And I remember Matt Kutch years ago saying, page speed's a negative ranking factor if you're like 20 seconds to load, like a really bad, right? They'll demote something that's just like a very, 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 very slow experience. But to me, it was never this thing where like, oh, I'm going to improve my Core Web Vitals and then I'm going to jump up in my rankings above my competitors, right? It never was that to me. But they always did say it was a small ranking factor, and now they're saying it's not a ranking factor. So can you
they said they never said.
Yeah, unpack that a little. Like, what is Google? What is the truth, right? What is actually what Google is saying, or what do you believe they're trying to communicate?
Well, let's go back first to page speed. So page speed, I had different experience with. Page speed was a tiebreaker at the query level. And I never said that, but I got John to confirm it after I got 200,000 visits a day increase on a site from page
Yeah.
speed. And I'm like, okay, John, I've had good results before from page speed. I've never had 200,000 visits a day. Granted, it was a 30 million a month site.
So a tiebreaker at the query level means everything else is the same and you just get a little faster than the other site. And then for that, explain that a little.
I don't believe that way they said everything's the same. I don't think that's true. No sites are ever all exactly the same.
Right.
But let's say their scoring in Google was similar.
Mm-hmm.
The page speed, when I improved those, like that's all I worked on with some sites for like 6 months or a year. We get massive hockey sticks. I could recover an entire site from a core update with page speed.
With page speed?
Yeah, because core updates tended to be technical.
Yeah.
Still tend to be technical.
And at the query level, what do you mean by that?
So it would apply it. The core updates are applied at the like root query level. So there was like a site that they had lost 90% of their traffic, and I went in and checked what main queries dropped and what folders those were in, and what pages they were in, and it was 2 main folders. And when I did an audit on those 2 main folders, they had massive technical issues that caused the crawling to be impeded. So we fixed those. The next update, 100%, 110% return.
Do you believe that's possible to do that now, that kind of recovery with page speed, or that was just before?
Yeah. No. Yeah. So page speed, I was so sad when Core Vitals came out because I had a site that I've been working with on page speed for over a year. We got everything perfect. So they went into CWVs at 100%. So I was like, everything was 100%. Like their mobile and their desktop and everything was green. Everything was good. And they said at the end of like August, I think it was, that we rolled it out. And I'm like, I go to look to see what kind of jump we got. We got like 10%. I'm like, you're kidding me. Like we took this site that was super slow and had all these ads and everything. And we fixed it up and the CWVs are perfect and nothing. I do say, and I don't have anything but anecdotal evidence for this, and I've talked to other technical SEOs, there does seem to be a devaluation factor. So my same company we got perfect, and we were perfect for like 6 months, decided that October to put 14 ads per page because they were doing so well. They added 14 ads per page.
Yeah.
Well, within 24 hours of those 14 ads going on the site dropped 30%.
Oh, wow.
And then we fixed it and it went back up. And then the next time they did it, because they did it 6 months later, the site went down 30%.
And you're saying that's page speed. Could that have been like a layout algorithm or?
I don't think
UX?
so.
Yeah.
I think because it was so fast. So if it was like CWVs, the devaluation is not supposed to be there, but I could see why Google would say that because, wow, all you'd have to do is slow a site down and then they would wind up having devaluations. Negative SEO would be real easy. And they would say on the uptick, you're going to get a little bit of an uptick. You're just going to get, better than somebody else, right? So I don't notice a big lift. Page speed, yes. CWVs, no. But I do notice significant drops within 24 to 48 hours of something being added to the site that makes it super slow.
Okay.
And then, that's not enough time for other algorithms to react, right? So, and the only thing that's checked every day is page speed is checked. CWVs are checked every day.
Right. So, and I apologize if you haven't quite gotten to this part of the answer yet, but are you basically saying that Google's just being semantic, that page speed is a deranking or a devaluing aspect currently, but that's how they're getting away with saying that it's not a ranking factor?
Yeah, see, I don't know about what the ranking factor thing is because Danny said it was never a ranking factor, and I don't.
They clearly did say that.
Yes, so I put together a screenshot of 5 times that they said ranking signal, ranking factor, and part of the page experience ranking system. And for people who don't know, ranking signal may or may not affect the up and down of a document, as far as how it's ranked. But a ranking factor always will, and those go into ranking systems, and that's the main system. So page experience, helpful content update, core update, those are all main ranking systems.
So what is a ranking signal impact then?
It may or may not impact, but according to, Google called
so the signal is like they could choose to
it may boost
follow the signal?
It may boost the ranking factor. It may contribute to the ranking factor having an addition. So like you put the ingredients in for making a cake, but until you bake it, it's not a cake. So a ranking signal can act that way. But in this case, it always said, Google's documentation contradicted itself, but it did always say that it impacted how the site was scored, whether the site would go up or down.
Right.
Well, up, they didn't say down, but up or down. So Google said there's no CWB ever. There's never a ranking system, ranking factor, ranking signal. So I put together screenshots and I said to Danielle, like, what do you call this? And they're like,
right.
Oh, well, our new documentation. I'm like, but there's like at least 10 places in multiple platforms that you guys have that say it's a signal. So you did say it was a signal or a factor before. Could you just verify? Did you just change the wording, or is it not a ranking signal or factor anymore? Which would seem weird because Google wants you to have faster pages because it saves them a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's no reward for having a lot doing the work, how are you going to get a company to spend their money on dev resources to do? Because it's pretty massive uplift usually.
Right.
So I don't know. So I can't get a straight answer from them.
So if you're somebody reading all this, like you either are a business owner or you run a site or you're working at a site, you're like anybody trying to take it, what would you advise to somebody trying to make sense of this, practically speaking, right? Should you prioritize page speed? Should you not? I mean, I'm always in the opinion of like, let's forget about SEO. And yeah, page speed matters for many, many other reasons, right? Yeah. But how would you advise somebody kind of make sense of all this back and forth from Google and the mixed signals, no pun intended, etc.?
I would say just what you said. We have data and science that backs up the fact that a slow page loses users and a fast page keeps users. So if you want site stickiness, you want people to stay on your site, stay on it longer, possibly convert, you definitely want to stick to the CWVs because they measure things that users interact with on the page. So I definitely say you want to do that work. But getting someone to prioritize that work without obvious reward is going to be difficult. So if you're trying to get the CWVs through, you're probably going to need to do some research to show the data that shows how site slowness affects people visiting and staying on your site. This is very different from other things because we do know that there's definitely a causation factor between slowness, like too many ads on a site. I bet you have sites, like I have sites I won't go to. I'll see them and search. I'm not going to them because I know they got 20 ads on that page. And, yeah.
Sorry, Forbes. I'm sure you have great content, but when I click, it's like pop-ups and like I just hit show cache and I like read the whole article for free. Anyways.
It's like Mashable used to be that. I haven't been back to Mashable in years. I don't even know if they're still there because they did that. And I was like, I can't do this site anymore.
During the like Phantom update era, 2017-ish or so, I took a screenshot of a Mashable page I loaded. It had 26 ads in the right sidebar.
And you know what? I've worked with a lot of publishers, right? The magic number of ads per page is generally 4 to 6. Yeah. I worked with a publisher who had 14 to 16, the one that got 200,000, 250,000 visits a day when we fixed everything on page speed. We dropped theirs from 14 and 16 down to 6 and 4. And their revenue went because one, we got so many more users, but also the revenue went through the roof because they had a much stickier site. People weren't leaving anymore because they didn't want to deal with it. So people have the mistaken belief that if I put 10 ads on a page, I'm going to make more money. And I'm going to tell you, put 4 ads on that page, you're going to make more money than you will with the 10. Right. As long as they're paying out some.
So let's move to E.A.T.T. It's a topic I've been definitely had a lot of anticipation to talk to you about because I know we're also fairly aligned in this, but you've had a couple recent posts on LinkedIn where you've gone into quite a large amount of detail on your thoughts and opinions about E.A.T.T. So let's break this down for people. So I know you and myself, we're sort of in the side that does not believe E.A.T.T. is a ranking factor. It's not a signal. It's not a system. It's not measured, etc. Right? Exactly. Just to get that viewpoint out there on the table. But let's also take it back a few steps with E.A.T.T. as well. First of all, where do you think that this whole obsession with E.A.T.T. in the SEO world came from? I have some screenshots and some of my own opinions. Maybe we can compare notes, but where do you think this all started and why has it caught on so strongly among so many people in the SEO community?
Okay, well, I know specifically where it started, but I'm not going to say because I don't want to call out people by name. I will say Google gave way too much exposure to people that were pushing the idea, because I think Google thought, hey, now we can convince people just to do content. And
Right.
and they would come out and say things that these people in the SEO industry were saying were not true, but they wouldn't call the person out. They would just say, no, we don't use authors. But they've been doing this since 2018. For anybody, this was new information. This isn't new. Google didn't change their opinion. They didn't, like with CWVs, they changed. They literally came out and said something different. But they have never said the EAT or E.A.T. when it started was a signal, a quality, relevance factor, anything. Because all it came from was, if I can back up a little bit, is the QRG, the Quality Raters Guide, was something that was leaked in the SEO industry the first time.
Yep.
An SEO knew a Google engineer, they got a copy of it and they put it out there. And that may have had some, information for us to learn from. But then they did it a second time. And by the third time, I think it was, Google just goes, you know what? We're just going to publish this Quality Raters Guide because then we can control the messaging, right? So the QRG is simply a quality assessment document. And I did QA when I worked at AOL years ago. And when you're a QA person, they give you a list of tests for the output of this, whatever they're developing. So it's sort of like if I had a new car and a new engine and I wanted to test how fast it was. And I get there on the track and I have 10 people there and I give them all the same equipment and they're going to see how fast it went, how fast it accelerated, how fast it stops, what it's, all those things. They don't know anything about the engine. And my stuff doesn't tell, the stuff I gave them to measure the output doesn't tell you anything about the engine either. Doesn't tell you how I made it faster, better, quicker. So they measure all that information and then they send it back to the engineers. And then the engineers go, hey, we wanted to be 4 seconds, 0 to 60, 4 seconds. We weren't. How do we factor and make it better? All the QR people are the people on the side of the track measuring that car, how fast it's going. So, and they had to put the QRG together. So everyone had a similar frame to work from. The data is useless if we all give our interpretation of what a quality site is. So they put that information in a document. People who don't know anything about ranking systems, ranking factors, any of that stuff, they use that to evaluate whether it's a good or bad page. And then Google takes that information. They put it back to the engineers. They decide if that test matched what they wanted to test. By the way, they could also test negative things, right? They could test if something was bad. And then they're going to do tens, hundreds, thousands of those tests, right? And they're going to take all that data and then they're going to put it together and then they're going to give it to the next set of engineers. And then it's going to have to go through project management levels and it even has to go through legal. Like this is something Google has stated before they're allowed to put it in an algorithm. So nothing a quality rater does is affecting how your site is ranked, how your site is interpreted. They're not doing machine learning. I saw that yesterday. They're training the machine learning. That's not how machine learning training works. So it's a nice concept. If I didn't know anything about how to make a good website or write good content, I would give it to a client and say, use these generalities. But when you start telling a client, like the one I just worked with, or I'm working with now, who's been down from a update, they're not even sure which one, and they've been told to get new authors and put reviewed by on all their pages. Yeah. 6 months later, do they have any improvement? No, because Google doesn't measure, like you said, Google doesn't measure any of that. And Danny, and now in the documents, it's so clear. It says, is it a ranking signal? No. It literally just says no. So everyone said no, the ones that you're holding on to. No, it's not a ranking signal, but it's a quality signal. No, it's not measured whatsoever by Google's algorithms and the things that rank your page. You have never ranked a page on E.A.T., and you will never be devalued on E.A.T. Now, there are things that underlie there that you might hit on. And like an author, maybe that author is really well known and there's a lot of entities around that author when they do a search. And so maybe you get a boost, but you're not getting a boost because you put an author's name or use an expert. An expert, and I'll end on this one because I know I'm rambling, but on expert, it's most likely, because they have a patent for this, that Google is looking at expertise as things are written. So in that topical mesh of medical we talked about before, they know the entities people use. Like you and I use certain language. I bet you could tell, Dan, if you talk to somebody on a call, they're going to hire somebody within 2 minutes if that person has any expertise in SEO, because they won't use the right language, right?
This is the perfect time for me to just interrupt for one moment and mention the tool Content A.C.E.D. Content A.C.E.D is a tool that helps you improve your content's topical completeness. It will crawl Google for the keyword that you enter, and it will pull together the most common entities, words, and phrases that are used on all the other high-ranking content. I like to think of this tool as a very high-powered research assistant. For example, months ago, I ran it on a search for a site I was working with, ways to style culottes. Culottes are a type of clothing. And it pulled in words that my client was not using in their post. Things like the phrase favorite pair, or waistline, or fitting, or other types of clothing items like bomber jacket that might be paired with this clothing. So what the tool does is it identifies these other terms, topics, talking points, sentiments, entities, etc., that if you were to add it into your content, it would make your content better for Google and for users. I don't let a single piece of content go out the door with my clients that I work with without having them run it through Content Aced and use this research tool to figure out ways to make their content more topically complete, which is exactly what Kristine and I are chatting about in this episode. So Content Aced is not a sponsor, but I am affiliate of Content Aced. It's a tool that I use myself. Like I said, I have every single client I work with use it. And I've seen firsthand now hundreds or thousands of times how this tool has helped myself and clients take content that maybe was not ranking or performing quite well and help get it higher up there. So you can go to evolvingseo.com/contentaced, no spaces, no hyphens, to get 50% off of Content Aced. That's evolvingseo.com/contentaced. They have plans that start free. They have a standard plan at $48 a month, $96 a month, and then a pro plan at $192 a month. It's a great price for a fantastic tool that I really can honestly say I don't think there are any other tools that do quite what Content Aced does. So at least give it a try. Content Aced is the tool, evolvingseo.com/contentaced for 50% off. Now let's get back to the episode with Kristine Schachinger.
So Google has a patent where they compare documents in the same topical vector on the similarities between them. And that would make sense. Was it written with expertise because it compares to other sites we know or other documents we know are quality? Or does it not? Not whether John Joe, because I could be friends with Neil deGrasse Tyson and have him write for my site. It could be perfectly legitimate. Or I could be part of the $6 billion fake science industry and I could have fake scientists and they actually get themselves in the non-peer-reviewed section of major medical journals. And it's very easy to spoof all that. So Google doesn't use it because there's no quality to the signal.
Yeah, I wrote a post in 2020, which I had actually written in 2019, and I just never published it. And in that, I talked about that same idea. I talked about that what I thought Google was actually analyzing and ranking on was just the text itself, right? Yes. Topical completeness, sentiment. I even think they probably look at the degree of transactional to informational, where you sit in that spectrum, where do you sit in a beginner to advanced spectrum. There's a lot of language things. And one of the things I love playing around with the most is their natural language API tester, where you can just like paste content in there and look at the categories and the sentiment and look at that text-based analysis for how Google is seeing things. And that's how I always felt that example I like is, you could maybe run an algorithm on a piece of music. So you went to art school, I went to music school, somewhat related. So similar fields. And I always thought of it like this, like Google's algorithm is just probably analyzing the text to look for elements in that text that may say this was written by an expert, but they're not looking at the author name at all.
Exactly.
They're just, is the output, like if you have Beethoven write a piece of music for you, the output of that is going to be high quality, right? So that's the way I saw content. And I have a funny story I always tell. I worked with a client for maybe 4 to 6 months. They sold beef jerky, but they wrote a lot of content that had to do with nutrition, right? The nutrition of meat, of beef jerky, of food, etc. One of their writers that had written 50% or so of their content, and by the way, they went from 5,000 visits a month to 100,000 visits a month in about a 9 to 12 month time period. They wrote all the content. I helped them with the SEO and the optimization. Good job. That writer left the company. They took his name off of all of his blog posts and they didn't lose 1 ounce of rankings or traffic.
Oh, yay. You're the test I was looking for. I asked somebody to do that on Twitter.
Yeah.
I was like, take it off.
And it happens by accident. It happens. I have a child psychology site I worked with for about 2 years, and they grew substantially with a low domain authority, but I work with them on structure, topical completeness, like all these writing things we're talking about, making I love Hemingway app, just making the text easy to read. Right. Because if Google's analyzing text, if it's easier to read, in my opinion, it's easier for Google to read.
Right.
They ranked extraordinarily well. They have no author profile pages on the site at all. I mean, they have their name and their PhDs, but we didn't do anything E.A.T.T related. Maybe a tiny bit, just because, if a user lands on the site, they might look for certain signs of authority or whatever that are good for users. But those are 2 of many sort of accidental case studies that I've
those are great.
Also done.
Those are great. Yeah. And that's how I learn things too, because I do a lot of recoveries. So I learn what moves the needle or not. I would like to tell everybody, you asked why it's gotten so prevalent. By the way, I love that test that you have. I'll talk to you about that online, because I really did post on Twitter. Someone take all their author names off and then tell me if you lose anything, because then we can just prove it now and be done with it.
Yep.
But I think the reason is because a lot of, especially younger or newer SEOs, don't understand that the QRG is not a secret sauce to ranking signals. Don't know what ranking signals are. I've seen well-known SEOs say you don't need to know anything about ranking factors or systems. It's like, I know Google wants you to think that, but my job as an SEO is SEO visibility first, then site users second. And that doesn't mean users come second. But if I'm only looking at user stuff, I may not be hitting on a single ranking factor. So I have to use them together. And with the QRG, I think people just don't, maybe not even know that until they just came out recently and were so hardcore about that's not a ranking signal, that they weren't hitting on them. So I would implore everybody, because I never hear anybody talk about this. Google put out a ranking system set of documents last year. They list every ranking system. They do a brief, and then you can click over and you can actually see about that ranking system and what they're looking for and what they want. Now, unfortunately, they reference E.A.T.T a lot, which I really wish they didn't do, because they make everything so muddy. But the point is, they have ranking systems documents. So if you want to know how to rank a page better, know that first, right? And then second, like reviewed by or author bios are great for users, but they're not going to add anything to your ranking signal unless you're a news site. You do have to have author bios if you're a news site.
Yeah.
But that being said, so I may spend all my money and time on adding reviewed by and authors and author bios and never hit a ranking signal. So why don't I hit the ranking signals first, get some uptick, and then we can do what works for site stickiness and users satisfaction. Because now I'm making money, or now I'm getting traffic, or now I'm doing whatever I need to do to get that site some lift. And then we can take that time and we can do that because it's good for users. But if you have like a tire site, unless you're getting like, race car drivers to tell about the best race car tires, you don't need an author bio on there.
Right.
You don't need any of that stuff.
I think part of the issue may be in the climate of social media and people looking for tweetable, easy, bite-sized things to share on Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. E.A.T.T seems to be one of those things that is a catchy phrase, and it's easier to say than getting in the nuances of like analyzing a query space or like going to the nuances of something. And also at the same time, I feel like E.A.T.T caught on because not only is it easily sort of shareable because it sounds like it might carry some weight to it, but I think people look for these sort of easier site-wide fixes, like, just add author bios, you'll be fine. Rather than a lot of times when I am working with sites, I end up doing the extra work. I literally going page by page and analyzing, why did this page drop? Why did this page drop? Because it's often not the same. Like one page may have dropped because it lost impressions because there's less search volume because it's seasonal. Another page may have dropped because they got deranked for half of the search queries, but the other half actually increased, but they lost more than they gained. And then another page may have dropped because maybe Google introduced, a big like SERP feature at the top. Like, so the point is, E.A.T.T sounds attractive because it's this sort of one overarching thing. Like, if I just fix this, everything would be great. But when I'm analyzing updates, it's never just one thing, right? I'm always seeing different factors. And so that may be another reason why it caught on, I think.
Yeah, I think it made it more simplified. And let's be honest, like the stuff that you're talking about is not simple, right?
Right.
And I know everything you were talking about because I do similar, and because I've also done that since I started building websites, like before I was even in SEO, because they made sense. But that's why some of the major companies, they hire librarians to do taxonomies to make sure they have topical, what do you call it? Topical
Completeness.
completeness. I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. But that's what an SEO does, right?
Right.
So if you just want to make the site better for users and write good content, well, that's not SEO. That's like just basic. This is what you do for any website. SEO is understanding how to build out site structure, how to build out interlinking, how to build out the topical relevancies, how to build out the topical completeness. And how much did that site? It was what, 5,000, and you got it up to 200,000 or something?
500 to about 100,000 visits.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so it works, right?
Right.
So
yeah, I didn't do any thing at all for that.
And when I never use E.A.T, and I never use E.A.T with clients. If it's something that E.A.T covers, I do the actual, what I know works in the ranking signals. I don't use E.A.T. It's very easy for Google to say E.A.T because they want us just to do content. Danny said the other day again, I just worry about users and content. And it's like, I respect Danny, I do. And I sometimes am, conflict with him because I just want Google to say the truth. Like, there are ranking systems, there are ranking signals. If we are SEOs, that is what we need to be working on, because that is what what I say SEOs do, to keep people from getting hired or fired. So if we do our job well, people get hired and they keep their jobs, to get raises, things like that. If we don't do our jobs well, then people get fired or people lose their companies. So it's very important that we understand the difference between just adding quality to a site and adding things that Google will reward with the ranking signals, because it prefers a site that does these best practices. So and E.A.T won't get you there.
One more very quick question on E.A.T, and then we'll move on to a couple other things I want to talk about. Why are there people that have case studies where they're like, oh, we did E.A.T, and now look at this case study, look at the results, we're ranking better? How can that happen?
So what's Darth's full Twitter handle? Darth talked about this the other day, and I agree with him. Hold on. I agree with him. So basically, if I have, a lot of times people are like, we rewrote all the content with a new author, and the author gave us all this boost. And you're like, no, you rewrote all the content. And the content probably wasn't well written before. Or, as I said, the author may be really well known. And if you're really well known, then you have other entities in the knowledge graph. If I'm just Joe Blow who writes blog posts as a freelancer, I probably don't have much of a entity space. But if you're Danny Sullivan, you have Google and the search engine land and SMX and all the things he's done. He's been a journalist, and you can have all those. So when people are searching for things, that name itself may help bring other entities to the page.
Right.
But that's not necessarily going to do that. One author name is not. But if I say, like, somebody from Marvel wrote this article, and then we talk about Marvel Comics, well, now we're all associated, right? So I think that's the other.
You mentioned something called spurious correlation in your LinkedIn post. What is that, and how is that getting wrapped up in people thinking E.A.T was helping them?
So I'm a sociologist by education. I have all the education for a PhD, just didn't do the dissertation. So so I had to take graduate level statistics methods. So I'm going to use an example from there that they always use when you take your first statistics class. So you have, like, the example of, in the summertime, ice cream sales go up and violent crime goes up. And so ice cream sales must cause violent crime, right? And of course, that's silly. Ice cream would not cause violent crime. And that's why they use it as a spurious correlation. What's the real variable in there? Heat.
Right.
Heat goes up, I eat more ice cream. Heat goes up, more violent crime occurs because people are out in spaces together. It also agitates people, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the main variables that's actually driving both of those variables. So when we're using E.A.T, we may do something. I added authors. Of course, you also rewrote all the content, but I added authors. So I think the variable is authors, and I got a boost. But the truth was, you wrote all the content, and the content was better. It was better written. So that was actually what caused your site to go up. So what I tell people when I post is, if I look at ranking systems, I know specifically what I am doing and testing You see if something improves or does not. And I know that that did or did not improve for that site, and I can replicate that among other sites.
You can repeat it.
Yeah, because that's a direct correlation, right? I did better page speed, not CWVs, but when page speed worked, and I went up, and that's the only thing we worked on. Then I know that's what caused it.
Mm-hmm.
But with E.A.T., what you're doing is you're getting ice cream, and you're thinking that caused the violence crime to go up, when the truth was there's another variable in the middle, and that variable is the ranking system you accidentally hit on. So when you try to replicate that over other sites, it won't work, because that other site doesn't have that ranking issue. So the only way to make sure that you're ranking sites well and consistently and predictably is by knowing what to look for against the ranking systems, and then knowing what to fix according to those ranking systems.
So one thing in the world of SEO that I've kind of noticed a lot in the last year or two is that the information out there is so abundant. It feels like learning and understanding what to do, how to do SEO is so widespread and commoditized almost. I mean, you have like Alita's Learning SEO resource, for example, right? Which is like, she has hundreds of free, it's all organized, right, by SEO. You know what I'm talking about, her resource. It's incredible. I mean, that didn't exist, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. So I've been sort of feeling the overwhelm almost, if you will, of the fact that it's like, to do SEO as an SEO consultant or freelancer in-house, etc., or at an agency, whatever it is, feels like maybe it's more accessible now. Like there's so much information. There's people that share strategies and tactics and things that I was not seeing being shared a lot 4, 5, 6, 7 plus years ago. So what's the value that an SEO consultant can bring to the table now for a client or an in-house SEO to the company they work with, right? When the information is so widely available and accessible, and it feels so abundant and commoditized, where's the value that we have as SEOs?
Oh, I think sorting out the mud. Being the life straw that cleans out the mud and water you're drinking, right? I actually don't almost ever use other SEOs information when I'm working with a client. Because,
same.
Yeah, same. So I always use Google. By the way, Google stinks at SEO. So if you want to find something that Google wrote about it, you have to add Google developer docs to your query. Otherwise, you'll just get SEO sites. Right. And the reason I don't use SEO sites, sometimes I do. Sometimes someone has a really, really good piece of content that I know is completely accurate, and I might use that because I can't find a good Google doc. But I always go to source. Source is Google. So I use Barry Schwartz because he reports from Google all the time. I use Roger Monti because Roger Monti does deep dives into how things work, and he's 99% accurate. And the little bit he's not is just generally because no one's given any sort of verification on whether it's a thing or not. And those are the two sources outside of Google I use. But basically, I use Google because Google, when we started, I don't know when you started, but I started in SEO 2005, 2004.
Okay.
There was nothing. We didn't have... Right. We had Matt Cutts that might, and the way he told us was, hey guys, we're going to hit big real soon. And you watch the big site that gets hit that immediately gets its rankings back. That scared everybody else. And then everyone else went, oh, we better do what Matt told us, right?
Yeah.
So that's really all we had except each other. So we had to talk, and we had to go to conferences, and we had to be in groups, and we had to compare, and we had to experiment. We had to do all that. Now you have the benefit of Google has a ranking systems document. Google has an SEO training guide. Google, before you do anything else with SEOs, Google's not always 100%. They never lie directly. Like they either, the WB things was a direct lie, but generally speaking,
What about the click-through rate thing too, right?
Yeah. Well, no, the click-through rate thing is accurate. So it's not at the page level, it's aggregate level. And RankBrain is totally built on aggregate clicks.
Right.
I discovered RankBrain before and had an article sitting at Search Engine Land the day that they announced it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's based on aggregate clicks over time. So and Matt said they used aggregate clicks. It's just that Rand said they used it on individual sites, and sometimes you'll see a little boost.
Oh, so they could get away with saying no, but Rand was talking about something different. Right.
They weren't lying. They were saying we don't use individual. They never said we don't use aggregate. Right.
Okay.
Matt said they use aggregate clicks. Yeah, stuff like that. And they'll try to misdirect, like, don't use links because, or don't disavow links because we know disavowing links can cause damage, and most of you aren't good enough to know which links to disavow. Now, there are times you do disavow links, right? So Google doesn't usually directly lie about things. They misdirect. They're like, oh, yeah, this or that, right?
Yeah.
So when Google tells us something in their documentation, 95% of the time it's going to be pretty accurate. So I would tell any new SEO, and I go back and look at them every year. I look at the beginner starting guide and all that. So I see if Google changed anything so that you know what the foundations are before you start looking at other people's SEO docs.
Right.
Because the SEO zombie myths, the ones that never die, like right now, E.A.T.T is going to be one of those. Because I saw yesterday it's still being perpetuated as a quality relevance signal. The way to avoid getting sucked into that stuff is to know the basics of all of it. And Google provides that to us in the developer documentation.
If you are a business or you're anybody looking to hire an SEO or an SEO consultant, what advice would you give to that person looking? Because I go on LinkedIn and I don't post a lot right now, but I go and look at the feeds and I'm like, there are so many people posting about SEO and so many. I remember when I was tweeting about case studies and traffic increases like 4, 5, 6 years ago, showing actual Search Console screenshots. Like not a lot of people were doing it then.
Yeah.
Now every day I go in there and I see like 20 graphs of Search Console traffic going up. Like, how can somebody looking to hire an SEO go about doing that and keeping their sanity and, finding somebody that actually knows what they're doing?
The best way to hire an SEO is to hire an SEO that's well known, like who speaks and writes and all that, to help you hire an SEO. I've done this with companies. Yeah, because we know.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Go ahead.
We don't get the respect of like a doctor or a lawyer or something, right? But our field is as specialized and changes as quickly, right? So if I am talking to someone and they have junior knowledge, I'll know it's junior knowledge.
Right.
They may repeat E.A.T.T and authors and all that, right? But maybe everything else they said is correct. Maybe everything else it is good. I'll know an advanced person because they'll talk like you did, topical completeness, site structure. So it's really good. It's simply, and there's so many of us in the industry at the upper level who will give you an hours of our time or 10 hours of our time to do all your people. Because literally when you get to the final stage or even in the preliminary stage, have one of us sit in sit in with you guys and we can tell you. It's that simple. Because it's hard if you don't know SEO. It's really easy to get snowed.
Very easy. I've unfortunately been the 3rd, 4th, 6th, 7th person hired by a company when I consider myself reputable, right? So, but they've gone through like 8 people that have been terrible. And so they're so jaded and everything.
Yeah, they are. I deal with it too. Go ahead.
On the other end of that, it does look like you're leveraging LinkedIn quite a lot to be hired as a consultant. Is that the most effective place for you nowadays, or what are the effective channels of visibility for yourself to get hired?
Well, truthfully, I don't use LinkedIn so much to get hired. I don't really get many contacts out of LinkedIn. What I do is to get facts out there, or or things that I learned. Try to because we have a lot of people that were looking for SEO fame around 2019, maybe because of the pandemic. And we stopped sharing as a community. And one of the best things about SEO was always, we were like a big family. Dysfunctional as heck, but we're like a big family, and even into our personal lives, But people shared things. They shared their information. It's like Daniel Foley's one that I like because he shares a lot of good information. He's not just sitting there promoting himself. I sometimes hate LinkedIn because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the 10th post I've seen about how to use LLMs, and no one actually knows how to use them.
Right.
So I think LinkedIn is just a good way to get yourself out there so people who know who you are. I think speaking and writing are really the 2 best ways. I do not have a website. I don't have a website because I do usability and accessibility and blah, blah, blah on top of SEO. So I know someone would come along someday and go, look at Kristine. She doesn't have all this stuff done.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I went and spoke, and also speak at conferences that aren't typical SEO conferences. I spoke at Affiliate Summit with 24 hours notice this past year, like January.
Oh, wow.
I had 8 meetings in the next 2 days, and 6 of those became clients.
Wow.
because not a lot of people talk about SEO at Affiliate Summit. You'd think that they would, but they don't.
That's right. Be
So,
the SEO at the e-commerce conference
yeah,
or something like that.
exactly. And
Yeah.
talk about something that they need. So a lot of affiliates got hit by the updates. So go in and talk to them. And now these are all audit clients who want me to help them decide what happened to their sites.
Interesting.
Yeah.
In terms of your services, I see you do auditing, you do recoveries, you also do a monthly support plan. I'm curious about this, not only so people can learn about you and your services, but also for myself and anybody listening that offers monthly SEO or support. What types of things are you offering in that sort of plan?
Well, basically, I start almost every client, unless it's just an automatic long-term client. Like I'm in talks with someone right now. Well, it'll be a 10-month contract. So the first month will be an audit. Generally, I do an audit first because we have to know where you are to know what we need to do. And I see a lot of people bashing auditing on LinkedIn and stuff, which really bothers me because it's like, well, what are you doing? Like I have a 5-page site. I'm not charging them to audit it, charging them to develop their strategy, right? But the 5-page site has 20 serious errors in it. So if they continue to build the site that way, they will be a 1,000-page site with 1,000 serious errors, right? So auditing, especially technical, because if your technical is bad, no matter what you write, you're going to be like Michael Phelps swimming with 50-pound weights on your back. You're not going to get to the finish line before anybody else.
Yeah.
So usually I start with an audit. Also gives me a chance to evaluate the client. Is this someone I want to work with? Is this not someone I want to, because I tell you, if you're new to any of this consulting, that client who is difficult or takes up your time is going to be the client that is difficult and takes up your time. That is never going to get better. No, it's not worth it because you could do the same thing for a client who's nice. All my clients right now are nice and understanding and helpful, and we work together as a team. And I go in and I try to act as what I call concierge SEO, which is I'm their fractal SEO. I do a prepaid retainer, always do prepay, do a prepaid retainer, and then
we should talk about that. Cash flow has not been pretty.
Yeah, I got lucky at that conference. Otherwise, I'd be in the same position.
Yeah.
But you do a prepaid retainer. You tell them how many max hours per month. I tell them I'll roll over any hours unused for 1 month, and then they go away after that. No one has a problem with that. Prepaid retainer, because you can't take back your work as an SEO. And if I just tell a client that, I never have a problem. And the ones who go, well, we have a 60-day net, which is made for goods, not for services. I say, okay, I'll start in 60 days. It's amazing how many of them can come up with a funding source quickly, right?
Oh, yep.
Because whenever I break that rule, there's a $2 billion company I spent 9 months trying to get $2,000 from. Like they're $2 billion company.
I hear you.
They did not pay.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
9 months. Yeah. And if you're a consultant, you don't carry like an agency. You don't have 100 clients. You can't carry people's not paying you. You just can't.
Right.
So you have to do everything you can to make sure. So I do an audit. I offer audit support for 2 months. And then we go from there and decide if we need me. And if we need me, then I give them 3, 6 month, 9 month or 12-month contracts. I make it easy to get out of the contract. So it makes it easy for them to get into the contract. And then we go from there. But basically the auditing is to make sure that we're focusing time and resources where it needs to be focused. And content audit is separate. I don't do a content audit as part of a regular audit. I will tell them if they have content issues. But a content audit is a content audit that is very in-depth. That is a lot of time and money. And I don't print out a tools report and give them that as an audit. I go through everything. I do deep dives. I always tell them that I'll have an extra week window when we say it's going to be due, because when I do the final check, I'm going to find something, probably an anomaly I didn't see before. And the last thing is anomalies are your best friend, because when you see an anomaly, most people skip it. Never skip the anomaly. Also do full crawls. I just found that this site has canonicals on 1,000 pages that are going to a IP address. Site is 2 million pages, right?
That's not good.
No, but it's 2 million pages. So no one, if you didn't do a full crawl, no, 1,000 pages, is that important? No, but if Google hits that canonical that goes to this IP address, it's going to bounce the crawl, right? It's going to be.
Are you using a cloud crawler?
I use, sometimes I use Sitebulb Cloud. Okay. I always use Sitebulb Download and Screaming Frog. Both are amazing tools.
Yeah.
Both are very affordable, and both give you a different look at your site. So you should really have both. Sitebulb is an amazing tool. It gives you all these reports and graphs and images and stuff you can easily screenshot and add to an audit. And then Screaming Frog's like you're down and dirty. I can just look in there and go, okay, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And then I'll go to Sitebulb and it'll give me all this extra information. So, and I do, if you reach out to me, because I forgot, I didn't think we were talking about this today, I do have a discount code for Sitebulb. So, and it's really cheap. It's like $35 or $40 a month.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Reach out to Kristine for that.
Yeah, and there's server versions 250. Sorry, server versions.
Speaking of that too, tell everyone. I know you don't have a website, but what's your LinkedIn and what's other places where people can find you? And also, are there any other conferences you're speaking at that people can come see you live?
I am going to speak at, I've only applied, so I don't know yet. I'm hoping to speak at Brighton and State of Search. I usually do my conference speaking in the fall. By the way, Brighton SEO, you got to come. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like old school. You remember the old school conferences, how those felt? Like everyone got together and we just hung out and we got to know each other and it was fun and everyone learned from each other. It's like that. It is the best conference.
I started in like 2009, 10. So I had a little bit of that. At that time.
So it's a great conference. It's really worth it. And I don't think they're still giving out free tickets. Check if they are. They give out a free day ticket, but if they're not, there'll be people closer to the event who got speaking gigs or can't go, and they'll be offering those tickets back to people.
Awesome. And then online, so what's your LinkedIn? And then are there any other places people can find you online?
LinkedIn's the best one. My other stuff is more personal stuff. And then if you are in Vegas and you want to meet up, someone like who's been following me on LinkedIn for a long time, who I didn't know personally, but he reached out, said, I'm going to be in Vegas. Can you come do a coffee? And I'm like, sure. Because I want to kind of rejuvenate that spirit we had where no SEO is untouchable. We give each other information. We help each other out. If you see me at a conference, I'll talk to you. I do owe a couple people from Affiliate Summit some information. I haven't gotten back to them because I've been so busy since. I had to do that this week. But so I like to do that. I like to talk to people. So if you're in Vegas and you're in for a conference, let me know with a little bit of time and I'll come down and meet you for some coffee or something.
Awesome. Well, Kristine, this has been fantastic chatting with you and I think a great episode. And thanks so much for joining us on episode 129 of Experts on the Wire.
Well, it's great talking with you, Dan. I really appreciate you having me on.
Recording stopped.
Okay. The strangest thing was happening in the last few minutes.